Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode, a story episode of the Liverpool Connection Podcast. I am Daz, your host. Chuffed to have this lad in. I've been after him for a while, not stalking him because that's a bit weird, but I've always liked the band that he used to be with. But we've got the bass player for Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds, and if you don't know about Noel's band, I don't know where you've been living, but he also was bass player for the Zootons. It's Russ Pritchard. Hiya, mate. Happy to have you on. Going to talk lots of footy and lots of musical influences and all that good stuff.
Good to be here. Nice to be on.
Yeah, well, you're back home, so you know you're not sweating bullets like you were a couple of weeks ago when you're over in America.
Yeah, no, it was pretty hard. It was a pretty not to be all. It was a hard rock and roll life, but it was just a bit hot doing the gigs and all that. You know what I mean? It was a bit sweaty, and it's kind of like the only thing that I'm not really. The only sort of situation I'm not that keen in doing a gig in where it's just absolutely pissing wet through with sweat. But no, it's great. I love touring America. It's boss. It's kind of built for it, really. You know, as you know, obviously with being over there, but it's massive roads, massive bus, massive buses, all that shit. So yeah, no, it's been good. It's been good, and it's good to be back though. It's nice to be back, and it's nice to get excited for this footy again because it was like the last 7 weeks or so when we were there. We were there for the Champions League final as well, actually, because he went to Champions League final thing. So it must have been like the end of May. Yeah, it was the end of May, June that we went. And but it was like footy's just off then, innit? It's off the cards for a bit. I just don't look at it for a while. I don't listen to Talk Sport. I just try and leave it for a month. Do you know what I mean? But now I've come back and it feels like, there's a lot of transfer talk and all that, and the team are off, doing the training camps and all the rest of it. So it's exciting again, and it's like feels like a real good start. Like, do you know what I mean?
It is because like after last season, I didn't want to talk about football and nothing, which again is hard to do when you have a football podcast. You've got to grin and bear it, and
this is it, isn't it? We've been having such a good time, and I think this is the quandary that is Liverpool in a way. Like we've been having since Klopp came in and was successful quite quick. And the dream of having the sort of dream manager came around because, I don't know how old you are, like I'm 44. So we've had like a while of shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, and sort of always wondering, I wonder if we will get the guy who, who'll do it and all that and he's like, I remember when he arrived, I remember saying, funny enough, to some of the lads on tour, I was like, if we don't do it with this guy, I reckon we might not ever do it because he just seems so perfect. And Rafa seemed perfect and failed, obviously, if you like him in the league. But I just thought we'd end up being like the Chicago Cubs or something if we didn't do it soon. If it got, you know what I mean? If it got to like 40, it's going to be fucking silly. So yeah. So it's been. I think because we've been having such a good time and seeing everyone else having a good time, you think that we'd have the logistical plans in place to keep the team fresh, and I think that's where we've clearly failed, isn't it? Really, up until at the end of last year. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
admitting that, but I think it's true. Like,
well, we really should have, been sorting this crap out about 3 seasons ago, and we've just let it,
it's a weird. Yeah, it's a weird one like that, isn't it? Because you think, like, I can't understand why. If because people say maybe Klopp's too loyal, and maybe he is. I don't know, but. You can't be. Look at City getting rid of Gundogan and all that. You know what I mean? Like he's just been ripping it up, absolutely ripping it up. He's gone. Like, and I know it's got to the situation and the contract and all that. It's like it's the right time for him to move and all that. But like, you'd think if that was at Liverpool, we'd be shitting ourselves. Like, what are we doing getting rid of this guy? Do you know what I mean? But he's got the culture of refreshing the team really, really right. But I've got a lot of faith in Klopp. I've got a shit ton of faith in Klopp. I think he's gonna come back really fighting this year.
I do too. I want to go back to the younger Russ. When did you really start supporting Liverpool?
When I was about 4 or 5, I reckon. I mean, as far as I can remember, I suppose it's always been there. My dad lived by the ground when he was a kid. So he was a big Liverpool fan. And we didn't used to go very often when we were kids. We used to go we used to work a lot, my dad. So we used to go in the week, the weeknights, in the Rumbelows Cup or whatever, and things like that we'd end up going to normally. As a fan, I can remember coming home from my nan's after the 86 Cup final with a teddy bear or something that was dressed up or whatever and sticking that out the car window. So I was always obsessed with footy, and then I played a lot of footy as well. And I just loved it, and I still do love it now. I quite like getting into belligerent arguments with people our age who say, "Oh, isn't it shit now? It's changed, and the money's come in and spoiled it." I'm like, "No, man, it's brilliant. It's a multi-billionaire, high-end. Everyone's got to be super high-tuned." Do you know what I mean? It's obviously it has changed. And I suppose when people hark back to it being better in their day and all that, they just don't like the change. But I think the change is good in football, and it will forever change, won't it?
It will. We can't be left behind. But do you remember your first match?
Yeah, I think it was Oxford in the Cup or something like that in about 1986 or 87. Something like that. In fact, I think, because Russ left in 86, didn't he? And I think his last game was against Oxford. I might be getting this mixed up, but I think I was at that for some reason. I was either at that or I phantomed a couple of memories together to make it like it was Ian Rush. But I seem to remember Oxford in the midweek in a cup or something like that. Most unglamorous, really, like my dad to take us to something like that.
So was it mostly your dad that took you?
Yeah, yeah. My dad, and then later on, when I got to being about 11, my uncle, who's a big blue, he married into our family through my dad's sister. And he's still got a barber shop on County Road, and they're all blues, but I used to work in the barber shop sweeping up when I was about 11. So he used to take me to derby games and stuff like that at Goodison, which was always a brilliant thing because he was really, my dad was into football, but not as much as my uncle. My uncle played a lot, so I used to play a lot with my uncle, and he took us to the 4-all at Goodison and stuff like that. We always talk about that as a mad memory, because I've got great memories of that being in the top balcony at Goodison. And it being just an insane game, you know what I mean? I think that's Kenny's last match, is it? Or the one before his last match? Something like that. I think he left after we got beaten the replay, didn't he, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Who was your favourite player growing up?
Growing up, John Barnes. I think anyone about our age, when that 88 team kicked in, you know what I mean? When I'm saying, I can remember 86, and I've watched the 86 Cup final so many times as a kid that I could sort of talk you through it. But I suppose being 8 or 9 by that time, or 10 or something like that. And we bought Barnes, when we sold Rush and bought Barnes, Beardsley and Aldridge, that team, and obviously we're going to win the league and everything else. That team was wild, wasn't it? You know what I mean? And Beardsley, do you know what I mean? Beardsley, McMahon, Whelan, you know what I mean? The whole team is just wild. But I think Barnes, he just had that skill, didn't he? Do you know what I mean? He took, he could take people on. And I still think, I know the game's very different now, and people taking people on is not really encouraged that much. But I still think if you've got someone who can beat a man, however they do it, it's exciting, and it changes the picture on the pitch in a split second, as opposed to a 1-2 taking, a bit longer, and it's a bit more, telegraphed what's going to happen. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, John Barnes.
Yeah, for me, it started Kevin Keegan, because I'm a bit older than you.
How old are you?
I'm 53. August. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I'm 60. Sometimes I feel I'm 21. Just depends what day of the week it is. But yeah, Keegan was mine. But then, once Barnes came, I was I've never seen any player like him before. Like, there's a difference between, you know, sometimes watching footy on the telly and then actually being in the stands watching him play. I mean, everyone was on tiptoes.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. Like, funny enough, I've only just remembered then we did a soccer six once. This is going back a while ago at Goodison, and I scored against Neville Southall as well at this soccer six, which is fucking amazing at Goodison. But anyway, John Barnes was on one of the other teams. He wasn't on our team. I can't remember which team he was on. Anyway, we played against them, whoever team it might have been the Darkness or something like that. Anyway, we played against them, and you're playing against, like, there's a lot of ex-professionals there, so the level is really high, obviously, and even though they're old, it's ridiculous. Like, but John Barnes did this pass that I still don't know how it happened. I could see what he was doing and I seen what happened, but it was like he bent physics for a minute, and honestly, it was wild, like, being on the pitch with it, because it was like, I played a bit, but it was like seeing that level, what they, and they obviously, and they're only having a kick about, they're not even trying. Do you know what I mean? It was wild, like, wild.
That Soccer AM was with the Zootons, wasn't it?
Soccer AM we did with the Zootons, yeah, but this was a Soccer 6 thing. It was like and that was with the Zootons as well, but it was like a charity sort of celebrity sort of footy match that they used to put on.
That must have been a good laugh if that was the Darkness.
Yeah, well, scoring against Neville Southall at Goodison was fucking wild, mate.
I love Justin Hawkins. Man, his podcast.
Yeah, he's good.
Absolutely boss. Like, he looks like he could be a lad that you could just have a pint with,
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. I think he is, isn't he? Yeah, I think he comes across very sound on it, yeah. And he's not copying, but he's doing a good fit. Like, there's this good music podcast, I don't know if you ever see it on YouTube, what Rick Beato does. And he's doing a bit, he's not copying, I'm not saying he's copying it, because he's not. It's a bit like in that vein, but I do like the way he does it, Justin, and he shows I think what's good about some of those things with people who are famous or whatever is that it shows that he's a fan of music. Do you know what I mean? Because musicians do tend to be fans of music. Do you know what I mean? And they're not as pigeonholed as music fans sometimes. If you know what I mean, they're like, music's just music, really. Do you know what I mean?
Did you see the one he did the little review of Rick Astley at Glastonbury?
No.
When Rick Astley sung with the Blossoms. Right. I mean, he looked like a proper rock star. He really did swing the microphone, but I mean, just seeing Justin's face reacting to that just made me feel like, not all rock stars are up their own arses.
Oh yeah. Not all of them.
just some of them. So speaking of, like, your musical, like, direction, I mean, when did you have you always played bass, or did you start with guitar?
No, I sort of started with guitar and bass really about the same time. Funny enough, I played for Liverpool when I was a kid for a little bit footy when I was about 13, and didn't last very long. That was about 6 months. And then when that finished, I can kind of quite remember, because I thought I was going to be a footy player up until that point. I was like, I'm going to be a footy player. I was kind of always one of the best and all that. And so all that, on that level. But as soon as I got to that Liverpool, it was like, I felt completely out. I was like, oh no, this isn't me. These are like, they were a lot more serious about it than me. And so I got jibbed after about 6 months by Steve Iway. And then I remember thinking, well, I'm not just going to get a job. I was like, I'm not doing that. And I could sort of see in my mum and dad that they just had jobs and it was just hard, and so me and my brother used to play guitars, and I was like, well, I want to do that then. Do you know what I mean? And I sort of set about trying to do that really, and I'm sort of still trying to work it out now, really. And
it's mad to think. I think every kid in Liverpool thinks they're going to play for Liverpool at Everton. I mean, they do. That's what we do. We, when you're young, you kick the ball around in your street, then you go to the park, and then you get picked up by,
Totally. Like, it's such a competitive world, football, isn't it? I do feel sorry for the lads who, like I said, I was always really good in my little groups. And then when I got up to that stage, it was like, oh no, excuse me. And I even felt at the time, these are much more serious and, you know, more committed. Even at that age, I felt like these are definitely more committed to this thing to me than me. And then, so, you know, I feel sorry for the lads who really, really push themselves, and, you know, and I've obviously got amazing talent, because it's like 0.1% or whatever that gets through. Do you know what I mean? Like Trent set up that academy thing, or hasn't he? Or like, not an academy, like a bit of a thing to kind of catch some of the lads who don't make it, because it, you know, it's brutal, isn't it? It's brutal. Like it really is brutal for the lads trying to get through. Like, and I think in Liverpool, and like most sort of working class cities, I suppose, football's a big deal, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? So I think, and you know, the girls as well now. You know, everyone's playing. It's a big thing now, and footy's, you know, it means a lot to people. So I think people want to be involved in it. Do you know what I mean? So that's why, you know, there's a local field by ours, and, you know, there's teams playing on every weekend. You know, the grassroots football is still pretty strong in places like Liverpool, I think.
It's tough though, because, you know, I mean, in the 80s and probably early 90s, you know, for a kid like wanting to play, you know, professional football, you're 100% committed, or, you know, sometimes 75, but you've got your parents on your back, like, you got to do this for us. And then then it fails, and then the kid goes into obscurity. He doesn't know what to do with his life. Now, at least there's a fallback. You know, you do have like psychologists and all this to help these kids, you know, because a few years ago, that Man City teenager who did suicide, God rest his soul and all that.
Yeah, no,
it's tough. You know, it is tough, but, you know,
I think hopefully we're in an age now where things like this get highlighted more, and, you know, the realities get highlighted more, and that's all for the power of good, really. Because, you know, young people I've got kids and all that, you know, and there's kind of teenagers and that now, and, like, you know, like, trying to make your way in life, it's hard, isn't it? You know what I mean? People often say to me, "Oh, you've done well, and, you know, played in some big bands and all that stuff," and I have worked at it, don't get me wrong, but also I can recognise that, you know, you get a little break sometimes, and some people, I know plenty of good musicians, you just don't get the break, you know what I mean? It's just, and it's the same with the footy, innit? If you know, whatever, the stars don't align, you might not be as committed as the next guy next to you who's in the team, and, you know, or you're like Billy Kenny from Everton, and you end up going down the wrong path in that way, or whatever, do you know what I mean? And, you know, there's plenty of ways to fuck it up, isn't there? Do you know what I mean? It's a lot easier to fuck it up. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I can only imagine, like, you know, it's either you're playing football, you play, you know, the scouts are there, and you have a really, really shit game. And same with the musician. Same with the musician as well. You have a really shit gig.
You've got to get lucky. And I'm really sort of like, I was really happy to see that Trent has done that, because, like, you know, he's such a good local lad in that way, and, like, you know, he's living so many lads' dreams in this city. Do you know what I mean? And beyond, of course. But, like, you know, he's been in the team since he was 18 or whatever, and under an amazing manager, and, you know, and he's won it all already, and he's like 24 or whatever he is. Do you know what I mean? He's not even that, is he?
I think that's the thing. We forget how young, like, Trent is. We forget how young Curtis Jones is as well. Jones is, you know, had the backlash from a lot of people just saying he's not good enough, and the only reason he's in the squad is he's a Scouser, which is absolutely stupid to say. You know, Jurgen Klopp is not going to let Curtis, because you're a Scouser, I'm going to leave you in the team.
I mean, some of the things that some football fans say are just fucking absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like we just said before, this is a multi-billion-pound industry. You think someone's going to go, well, yeah, we keep him because of this little thing, like, instead of getting someone who's going to try and help you win. It makes it about winning, right?
Yeah.
You know, so
I think people don't really think about that.
Yeah, no, that's funny. I mean, it's such a weird thing being a footy fan, and we're all guilty of it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm not, but, like, we all act like we know a lot more than what we probably do. Do you know what I mean? Because, you know,
gotta blag it sometimes.
Yeah, I know, yeah, totally. But I just mean, you know, some people think, oh, he's, you know, I hate it when people say he's not even trying. You know, when people say that about certain players, it's like, fuck off, man. Do you think he's not trying? I met Sean Dykes the other day, right? And at this gig in Nottingham, and he was really impressive, right? And I'm obviously a big Liverpool fan, but he was really nice to meet him, and he, like I said, he was really impressive, and it was like he was really nice, and we had a good chat for a while about Everton and football in general and stuff like that. But he was a really nice guy, as I said. But the big takeaway I got was, if you fuck around with him, mate, I tell you now, he'd fucking eat you alive. He was like the worst bouncer, because there was an air. He was being really nice, but there was just an air of, if you say the wrong thing at any time, I'll fucking eat you alive. So God help the Everton players, but my point being is that football is so competitive. There's no, I like you're saying as well. There's no room for any, we let this guy in because of this little reason. Mm-hmm. Liverpool players, like any players in the Premier League, you've got to earn your place, haven't you?
Of course you have. So from going back to your musical roots, what were you listening to as a kid? Because I know that your first band, the Big Kids, was more like soul.
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, do you know what you mean? When I was really young, when I was 15, I'm a bit younger than you, but when I was 14, 15, 95, Oasis and Nirvana were out, you know what I mean? And that was really exciting because they were the two biggest bands in the world, and they were both really exciting bands, you know what I mean? And, and there was a load of other great music as well. But I often say, I'm really happy to have been a teenager at a time when there was two, great bands can be great bands and all that, but when you get a band like Oasis or Nirvana, who sort of they change society a little bit. Do you know what I mean? The kids, there's a new dress sense that's born out of it, and when you'd seen a grunge kid and you'd be like, oh, you're into Nirvana, and you'd see someone with a Liam haircut, and you're into Oasis. Do you know what I mean? It was such a, and then it sort of jumps the shark quite quickly and all the rest of it. But in that moment when the match has just been lit, and there's two bands really on the edge of their greatness or whatever like that. So I used to love that, and then just went on the big sort of everyone around that time, I suppose. I got into those bands of the moment, and then quite quickly sort of you start looking back into your dad's record collection a bit more and stuff like that, and getting into a lot of Marvin Gaye and Curtis Mayfield and James Brown and stuff like that, and obviously the Beatles and the Stones and stuff like that. And then it's just one big sort of family tree of music then, isn't it, really, in terms of one thing leads to the other, leads to the other, leads to the other. And I'm still, I'm sitting by loads of my records here. It's just like an endless thing, really. It's just never going to stop in terms of what I'm into. And yeah, the Big Kids was about, one of my first bands. Was in with Edgar. It was a very soul-y sort of thing. What Edgar does, he's really good, and he was an amazing bass player, Edgar Jones. Everyone should check out his music on Apple or Spotify, whatever, because he's really good, and he's kind of he's known in cult circles, I suppose, but in some ways he's quite unknown. And he's an amazing bass player. So for me, as being a young musician, he wanted me to play the bass, and I was like, fucking hell, this could go weird, because everyone loves Edgar, rightfully so. He's one of my favourite ever bass players, never mind. In Liverpool, ever. Do you know what I mean? He's just incredible. So I was kind of worrying that people were going to be like, what the fucking hell is this stupid kid doing it? But thankfully, it kind of made me it threw me in the deep end, and it swam, if you know what I mean, just about. I do remember thinking, I could fuck this up here. But I suppose it's one of those moments, maybe, looking back on it, that could have went wrong, but didn't. So it was a good thing for me, confidence, being sort of given the bass player role by such a good bass player, if you know what I mean.
And then with the Zootons, how you were already mates with quite a few in the.
Yeah. Sean, the drummer, was in the Big Kids with us as well. We went to school together and stuff. And then, so with Liverpool being quite incestuous anyway in the music scene, in a good way. So that, like I said, we were in the band with Edgar, and Edgar was 10 years older than us, which was always fine. But I think Edgar split the band up because he had enough of it or something. I can't quite remember. But and then we sort of me and Sean were like, well, we're going to go and do something somewhere together because we were good mates and we played well together and stuff like that. And so Dave McCabe was in a band called Tramp Attack, and they'd split up around the same time. So we found him and said, let's start a band. And he was already with Boyan, this lad who also used to go to our school. And so they were kind of playing together, and they were two guitars, and we said, oh, well, yeah, you're two guitarists, we're the bass player and the drummer, so that makes a band. So that, it's kind of like, that's the way it goes in Liverpool. It's like, you've only got to sort of come up with a name, and that's it, really. So we kind of, and, we were pretty shit at first and all the rest of it, just like any good band. We didn't really know what we were doing because we never really set out to start a band before. We just always played with other people. But then Dave started writing really well, and we started sort of writing with him really well. And then it took off from there, really. It was all quite organic and lovely and all the rest of it. And yeah, and then if you want the full story...
You couldn't really pigeonhole the Zootons either.
No.
You weren't exactly rock and roll. You weren't indie. You weren't, even that spaghetti Western kind of style. And then you had the folk to it as well. So you couldn't really go, all right, you put it in this genre of music.
Oh, definitely, and there's a bit of soul in there as well with the Zootons tunes. There's definitely a few minor sevenths and stuff like that, which sort of give it a bit of a soul-y twinge. But, and yeah, no, I think that's one of Dave's and the band's, credits that it was always quite hard to put a finger on it, which was good. And then that finished, that carried on till about 2009 and 10. We did a couple of records, and then we sort of hit a bit of a bump, really. And then we kind of said, why don't we jib it for a bit in 2009-ish, I think. And we sort of said, well, we won't even announce it. We'll just stop. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, well, if you don't announce it, then it's like it hasn't happened. If you know what I mean, you can always just start again. You haven't got to worry about the press, if you know what I mean, or whatever. So we did that. And then I've had kids for a long time, and I was kind of ready to leave anyway, if I'm honest. Not for any reason, just for wanting to move on, I suppose, and all that. So once it kind of finished, weirdly, my mate Macca, I bumped into him in a recording studio, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to play guitar with Noel in his solo project," and I was like, "All right, so." And then literally about a week later, the Zootons split up. And then I broke my cruciate ligament playing footy for the second time. And so I had to get that fixed. And that was the end of my career. Then that was the end of my footy career after the second one. But whilst I was getting that, whilst I was recovering from that, I was like, what am I going to do? And it was a bit, I was like early 30s, I suppose, then, 31, something like that. So, a classic sort of life moment, I suppose, for me. It was like, what do I do? Wanted to do something different and all that. And I did. Like I said, my mate said about Noel starting a band, and I had his number, and we weren't mates or nothing. Just had his number from him coming to our gigs from time to time. And I just thought, I'll give you the text. And I thought, well, if he doesn't want me to do it, he'll say he's got someone else. Or if he's got someone else, he'll say he's got someone else. So I thought, well, it's not really a bad outcome here. It's either yes or no, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, that's and I don't think it'd be that. But even if it was that, so what? And I did it, and I literally had to go to Bog for the shit because I felt weird. it sparked a physical reaction. And then he texted me back within about half an hour or something and said, yeah, that'd be amazing. I'll phone you tomorrow. And I've been in the band since, really. Yeah. So it's just
that's got to be crazy, though. As you said, as a 15-year-old listening to Oasis, who were the biggest band on the planet then, I know it sounds so cliche, but were you going, all right, one day, I'll play with this band?
No, not at all. No, it was never like that, because you don't, that's just not, you don't imagine that, they'd ever split up and all that, Oasis or whatever. But I suppose he was definitely a part of me. That band was definitely a part of me wanting to be in a band. Do you know what I mean? So that's a special thing. But then we'd had our own. You sort of quite quickly realise what it's about, and as in the music industry. And so we made our own success and all the rest of it when we did. And, so no, I was never obviously gunning for that. But I do remember, like, before I went down for the first rehearsals in about 2011 or something like that, I do remember kind of sort of like trying to get myself ready to picture him in the room. Just because I was like, well, I've played music with loads of people, do you know what I mean? And ultimately, music's just music, and people, it's a good leveler of people. It doesn't matter how successful you are. The music tells the truth. Do you know what I mean? If something's not working, or if something's, and generally musicians agree. They go, yeah, it's not working. We need to, So I kind of thought, like, well, it's going to be the same as it is with anyone, really, I imagine. And it was really the same. And he's been great from day one, really. He's been just the same as any Scouse lad I've been in a band with, basically.
So what do you do when you first met him? Was it like more of like a jam session? Like, let's jam?
No, it was, he'd already recorded the first record in LA, I think. And so we'd been sent that, and he was like, learn all these songs, learn X other ones off Oasis back catalogue or something. And then we went for a rehearsal in this small rehearsal space in Shepherd's Bush. And it was me, Noel, and my mate Macca, who was playing guitar at the time. And there was a little camera set up, like videoing us. And we just ran through the songs, just like sort of the three of us, with no drummer, which was obviously a bit weird. And he, like, I'd learned it off by heart anyway. I was sort of like, I quite quickly realised that this might be a good thing. And like, like I said, I wanted to do something really different anyway. And this felt really different. Do you know what I mean? This felt like a whole new chapter and a whole new bunch of people. And, and it was exciting because it was his solo project and all the rest of it. So I'd really done my own work. Do you know what I mean? I really knew the songs inside out a bit too well, really, if anything. And so, like, that night after the first rehearsal, he texted me and he was like, this is going to be brilliant. We'll go around the world, all the rest of it. And I was like, okay, sounds.
14 years later, you're still going around the world with him.
I know. It's mad. It's brilliant. I feel very lucky, I've got to say. I do feel very lucky. Like, especially like we haven't done it for a while with the pandemic and that. And then we've just done 7 weeks in America, and that was the first proper tour we've done since the pandemic. And you do realise how lucky we are to go, travel to different countries, and people turn up to the gigs, and you know what I mean? It's, you sort of get a reappreciation of how lucky we are to have such a great job, and all the rest of it.
Well, there's no point being a musician if you can't play live, so that's what I wanted to ask you as well. I know Noel, I've listened to quite a few of his interviews, and he said, like, during lockdown, he'd already had that album already sorted.
Yeah, he's got a couple more done as well, I think.
Yeah, it's just amazing where you've got some people that were very productive, during lockdown, and then others that would just like sit on the couch and just eat their crisps and drink. Drink. Well, how was it for you?
Well, it was funny for us because in 2019 we finished in the winter, and we'd just been in Australia with U2 supporting them on the Joshua Tree tour, and then we did our own show in Thailand on the way home. I think that was in like the November or something like that. And anyway, so we've been touring for about 5 years at that point without any proper, like, we've been home and all that, but I mean, like, without like 6 months off or anything like that, to sort of kind of need a proper time home when you've been touring sort of thing. So we'd had this quite busy 5 years or so, and so we were going to have 2 years off basically anyway, something like that. So I was like, fucking hell, great, I've just done all this work. I wanted to start my own project a little bit. I've been working on that in the background, and I was like, okay, now so then we turn into 2020. And I'm like, right, we're going to win the league. Like, we were due to play Glastonbury that summer, 2020, before McCartney. So I was like, we're going to win the league. We're going to win it by about April. I'm going to have one of the best summers of my life. Then we're going to play Glastonbury. like before McCartney, and I was so. And then I'm gonna have like 2 years off after that. You know what I mean? I'm gonna have 2 years to myself to try and finally sort of get round to getting a record together myself, which will never fucking happen. But I'll be constantly working on it. But you know, it's like, okay, sound. At least I'll you know, this is some good time to do it now, and I was excited for that. And then obviously with what happened, I remember in the March. Right, that's just a long story. I'll get into this a bit more, right? So then, do you remember when we lost to Watford?
Yeah.
And that was the first loss, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying to my lad's 22, now he's quite old, so he was like 19 or something then. And I said, there's going to be a blip. There's got to be a blip. I'm not having it because we'd won about 29 out of 29, hadn't we, or something stupid, or 28 out of 29. I said, there'll be a blip. I'm telling you now, I've never seen it where there's not a blip. And then we lost that game, and then we lost to Atletico Madrid in the week, I think it was. And then, so then we were out of that. And then we played Bournemouth at home, and we were 2-1 down. Right? I remember watching it in front of me in the back room. I was like, we're going to fucking lose it. I couldn't believe it. I was convinced at that point that we were going to lose it. And we come back in that game to be 3-2 up, and Milner clears one off the line. Do you remember? He runs back. Mm-hmm. Just about catches in, clears it off the line. Now, once he did that, I was like, we're fucking on. We are on. This is fucking happening, this, right? Now, when it got stopped, right, and then Glastonbury got pulled like about the same week, I don't reckon I spoke for about 2 weeks. Because my missus says that she says, I reckon I had a breakdown because I was so ready for like this. It was a perfect summer coming. Perfect. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I had tickets. The game, when it got stopped, the footy, we were meant to play Palace on the Monday. Mm-hmm. But the next game was Palace. I remember that because I had tickets sorted. I've got a connection with the club. I had tickets sorted. And I was like, got the tickets sorted. It's all fucking on. It could happen against Palace on the Monday or whatever it was. Or whatever it was. And it was so shocking. It was distressing, right? Apart from that, I was all right with it. Honestly, and no disrespect to anyone, I shouldn't say things like that because people lost people and all that. But I was so angry that the footy had been stopped. And I know there was a pandemic going on, and I take it very seriously. I'm not an idiot about the pandemic at all. But because I was just so selfishly like angry that I was like, I can't believe. Like, I was shocked. I was in shock because everything was so right, like that season. Do you know what I mean? And I was waiting for the thing to happen the whole time. I was like, it's too right, this. Do you know what I mean? And obviously I didn't make it happen, but like, it was like, I was saying to me, lad, I was like, this is like aliens have landed. I've never fucking heard of a pandemic. I was 42 at the time, whatever it was. Fucking pandemic. The fucking Black Death. That was fucking years ago. That's never happening again, that shit. And obviously it was fucking more fool the rest of us because it might fucking happen again as well. But, you know, so once that got sorted, I felt all right about it. But, I mean, it's still a sore point, I think, with the Liverpool fans. I remember hearing Milner talk about it recently before he left, and he was saying, you know, and I think we're moving on a little bit from the pandemic, but I think like Klopp's mission for this next has he got 3 years left?
26, yeah.
So 3 seasons, yeah. It's got to be to at least win one Premier League in front of the fans. Do you know what I mean? And I don't mean like he's got to do that. I mean like that's what he'll want to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean and I think that's why, you know, we did the City tour with the FA Cup and League Cup.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
See, if you're not a Liverpool fan, you don't understand why we actually did it. It's because, you know, millions of people never got to actually be there.
Yeah.
But, you know, that I'm with you as well, Russ. I'm pretty selfish as well because you're just like, this isn't right. This is not fair. This you know, COVID is going around. You go, this isn't fair. We've waited 30 years for this. We want to be there. I mean, and it was sad to just see in the stadium nobody in there.
It was sad, right? And it is a sad reality that that's how it played out. But also, as much as that is the case, there's a bit of me that goes, do you know what? Life is mad, and that's a good example of how mad life can be. A team waits fucking 30 odd years, and then there's a pandemic. And then, we were all outside the ground and all that night and all this. And it was magic, do you know what I mean? And it was kind of tainted in it because everyone was a bit worried about who were going to catch it and give it to your nan and all that. But, it was still magic, and it was kind of weirdly special for it, I suppose, do you know what I mean? But I'm convinced he'll win it again, Klopp.
I think so as well. I mean, and again, with City doing what City do, I think we would have won it maybe a couple more times as well. But
Oh yeah, but I don't hold any grudge about that, because
they're a good team. They're a good team.
They're never mind a good team. They're a record-breaking team, just like we were when we won the Premier League. I often like to remind, I've got a lot of City fans, obviously, and United fans. We won it in the quickest time ever that season. People give it when people start chatting the asterisk bullshit and all that. If you want to give it that, the real asterisk is the season after, because it's a whole season without fans. You know what I mean? So if you get, and I don't even think that's an asterisk because they still played footy. You know what I mean? So we won it in the record number of games, and we were outstanding that season. It's fucking amazing, so good. But like I said, I'm convinced he did it then, and he'll do it again because he's done it at Dortmund, and he showed he can do it with us. And I think what's mad is that I open right about this, could be wrong, but I think he went from being 7th or 8th to being in the Champions League final and coming 4th in a season. You know what I mean? So, I think we can go from a poor. My point being, I think we can go from a poor season last season. Mm-hmm. To absolutely challenging again straight away. I do think it'll probably take a year. I think there's a few too many new heads this season to hit the ground proper running. I mean, obviously, I'd like to see us do it, but I think we'll get back in the Champions League this season, and I think we'll challenge the year after.
Yeah, I'm with you with that. So, how's the banter in the band? Obviously, I know Noel's a City fan. Who's the other fan?
There's not many of the big footy heads in the band, really. Chris, Gem, and Mikey aren't really that fussed, really. Gem's a bit of a Tottenham head because of his son, and Mikey is a Brighton fan because of his son. And Chris, I'd say, is a Liverpool fan because of his son. He's not particularly asked. No, obviously Noel, big City guy. And yeah, it's funny, right? Because when I joined the band, we weren't really rivals, right? In 2012, us and City didn't really have anything about us. So it's funny because it's actually developed whilst we've been in the band. Do you know what I mean? And I remember one time at the start of the band. Now when we go to Italy with Noel, he's like a god, in Italy, like a genuine. And so I'm kind of used to seeing how people react around him now because I've been around him for so long. But when it was the start, it was like, oh wow, he's a fucking Anthony guy. But they're literally weeping in the streets and all this madness. So anyway, we're in Milan, and we watched Liverpool v City, and I think it was, in fact I know it was, I can remember it. And when Balotelli scored a dead long range goal for us against them, it was at home. I think it was to equalise, to make it 1-1. Anyway, because we've been getting beat for a bit and we've equalised, all these fans, you get the fans waiting in the lobby, but they're not allowed to go anywhere past the lobby, and we were in the bar, so they can sort of see through into the bar, but they're not allowed in. So then when we've scored and I've jumped up and I've gone, hey! Grabbed him sort of thing. But then all these fans have seen it and he wasn't into it, you know what I mean? So I had to I sort of quite realise that his public image is a thing. And we and also I thought it's a bit of a dickhead move anyway, sort of, you've got to kind of be respectful of your friends, the other team thing and all that. But no, it's funny. We don't really talk about it that much anymore, about football. We do talk about football a lot. we don't really talk about the Liverpool City thing because he's a really sore loser. I'll say that. I hope that he sees it one day. But oh yeah, he's a very competitive beast, and yeah, no, it's good. It's good banter. Especially it was really. I mean, it was wild. Like there was those Champions League quarterfinals, and that we had with them and all the rest of it. Like my lad was at the one that when we beat them at home, and I think we ended up beating them away, and the Salah goal. Do you know what I mean? And my lad was at that one, and we watched that again. Funny enough, again in Milan, but this was a couple of years later. And fucking hell, it was it's just it's a big deal, isn't it? You know what I mean? Because we're both he's a really passionate City fan, and I'm a really passionate Liverpool fan. The Champions League, is the biggest. It just feels electric, doesn't it? I know I'd rather win the Premier League and all that, but those midweek nights, it's fucking wild, isn't it? Like, so.
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing like that match. When we went to the Etihad and we beat them. They scored early with Jesus, so right, all up in the air, and then he scored, and then Bobby scored the winner.
That's right.
My God, I went crazy. I mean, because at that time we're watching two of the best teams in the entire world. Absolutely. I mean, it was like boxers going back and forth.
No, definitely. And funny enough, me and my son and his mates went to the City game at City. It was in the January, just after Christmas, right at the start of January. I think it was the first year we really challenged them. So the year before we won the league, whatever, so going into 19, I suppose, 18, 19, and we played them in the January at their ground, and we got beat 2-1, and it was it was the one. I think it was the one where it was nearly in by a millimetre and all the rest of it, and Stones cleared it off the line. But it was the best game of footy I've ever been to. And I've been to a lot of fucking games of footy. I've seen some great teams come to Anfield and all. I've seen them all at Anfield, but it was just, and even though we lost, I mean, my lad was fuming because we lost, and I was like, do you know what? I'm a bit gutted on that, but that was amazing. That was wild, and the fact that we're competing on that level with a team who were also on that level is fucking an amazing thing to see.
That's just two heavyweights, and you just watch, you watched all of last season, and you could just tell Arsenal weren't going to win the league. You just knew it. It's just a juggernaut.
Well, I mean, I know what you mean, but when they had those couple of games, like that one against Villa, when they were 2-0 down, then 1-4-2, and there was another one at the what's the place called? The Emirates, is it? Yeah. When they came back against someone as well. And I do think they've probably missed a chance with not having Europe last season and all that. But I think they put a great first half of the season together, man. Do you know what I mean? I think it'd be interesting to see what they're like this year. Really, well.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've added quality. And the jury's still out on Havertz, but
yeah.
With bringing in Rice, they've got a young team. I mean, Saka, I think he's an absolute gem.
Oh yeah, definitely, he's electric, isn't he? They've got some Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard, a young, hungry squad. I think they're definitely something to look out for. Do you know what I mean?
But never count us out. That's the thing. I would think the fire's been lit again.
Oh, it looks like it hasn't. When you I've watched some of the inside training things and all that that they've been putting out, and Klopp's talking a big game, do you know what I mean? And I don't think he's the sort of guy to do it without feeling that he's got something that's going to back it up. Do you know what I mean? I think Nunes' second season, and he had a decent enough start last season. I know he drew some bad attention and all that, but good enough, decent enough goals return for the first season, and enough it causes people problems. Do you know what I mean? Running the people the way he does and all that. I think he'll kick on a bit this season, hopefully. And we'll see what happens, won't we, I suppose?
Yeah, I like Gakpo. I really do.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just don't really there was lots of things that like made last season shite. Too many injuries, World Cup. But I mean, every team has that.
No, but I think it's all right to cite it though. You know what I mean? It's like we like because that on top of, and I didn't like when at the start of last season or before Christmas, people were talking about Liverpool and saying like, well, it's the hangover from nearly winning the quadruple and that. And I'd be like, nah, I don't reckon, and I'd sort of brush that off a bit. But then the more the season went on, I thought, well, yeah, it does make some sense because a team's kind of at the end of a cycle in terms of its members. And like, they were nearly hit an absolute peak of peaks. And they were fucking close, man, you know what I mean? It's like, and they failed. And like, it's understandable, I suppose, that that on top of the injuries, the World Cup, the short pre-season, like you say, and I think it was a perfect storm of shit that got us off, really,
Yeah, and I think they'll be ready to go again. I can't imagine. Like, I think what us as supporters, we don't really picture these players as like me and you, like people.
Humans, no, totally.
Like robots, like Van Dijk said after the World Cup. He's like, we're treated like robots. Like we can play and play and play, and I can't imagine playing 63 matches, every match possible, losing the lead by a point. I'm pretty much playing, Madrid off the park for a while. Courtois is their man of the match. Well, player of the game.
Shot on targets and all that.
Yeah, and they have one and score. I mean, I can't. I mean, it hurt me.
Same. Just look a punch, like, definitely.
But I think they'll go again. I really do. I think the fire's burning, and hopefully with a few, at least 2 more players coming in. I think.
Definitely. I mean, we're in for Lavia today, aren't we? But I think I mean, he's only 19. I think there's got to be another more experienced 6 coming, because Fabs, while he had a bit of an off season, like a lot of people last season, at his best was fucking wild. Like, and I think it's such an important position these days on the pitch that I think having someone who's tall who can do the job so they can win aerial battles as well is such an important thing. And he had a bit of a turn of pace in some weird ways over the short space, Fabs. You know what I mean? He could make stuff up quick. Do you know what I mean? If he had to get back, and obviously his awareness was so good as well. I think you don't want to be starting this season with a prospect in that position. Like, I just think we need to find someone. And I don't know.
A prospect though, the Shattuck. We already have one. That's
exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. We've got him, and I think Lavie is just a prospect, and he really. I don't think he I don't know that, but I don't think he's not. He's not 24 and knows exactly what he's doing. You know what I mean? Which is, I mean, it'd be amazing if we could find a way to try and go back in for Tchouaméni, but it doesn't seem to be any noise. But we'll see. Like I said before, I've got faith in Liverpool that they'll get it right this season.
What I want to ask you now, like I always ask musicians that come on, your like festival lineup, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, alive or dead. Who would you have as headliners?
Okay, a Friday night and a Saturday night and a Sunday night. Okay, that's a good shout. Okay, so I think for a Friday night, Friday night's the most exciting night to go out. I think it's just the end of the week, and Saturday night's obviously a big party night anyway, but for some reason I always find Friday more exciting. So I'll put Nirvana on the Friday night, and that'd be wild, because it's like the start of the weekend then, do you know what I mean? Like, it'd be mental sort of thing. I'll put them on, and who would I put on Saturday? But I mean, you'd have to if you've got a chance to put the Beatles on, you've got to put the Beatles on, haven't you, really? Do you know what I mean? Like, if I'm promoting this thing for one night only, I think I've got to put the Beatles on Saturday, because they're big time. They've got the tunes they can pull off a Saturday night. And on the Sunday, you want something a bit more chilled out. So I reckon I'd put Bob Dylan on the Sunday. I'd have Nirvana, the Beatles, and Bob Dylan, and loads of other boss stuff.
Yeah, man, that's a killer lineup. Yeah, I'd go pay to see that, defo.
Yeah. Or jump the fence, either or.
Yeah, or dig a hole under the fence. Just, yeah. It's hard to blag your way in now. You just got to find like a hole to, go under.
I know. Not the same as it was in our day.
Yeah. You see these YouTubers, like, I saw the one like who did the one that was under a little like ditch.
Really, right, boss?
He went under it, then he went over, then he was watching, the security, like what time they switch.
Right, yeah.
Then he got over, and then
boss, he made the YouTube of it as well.
Yeah, I was like, well, you ruined it for everyone else now.
Yeah.
It's going to be more security where you just popped in. So yeah, that's done.
I think you can get walked in, can't you? I think that's a way to do it, but I wouldn't know.
Yeah. So what are your predictions for next season then, or this season coming?
This season coming, I'd like to think that we challenge for the title, and I do think that's possible. I do think it's possible because I think Jurgen's got it in him to turn a team's fortunes around quite quickly, especially with new faces. But I think realistically, with what looks like it's going to be a whole new midfield of like first teamers and people who are stepping into the midfield, if you like, from time to time. I think it might be a big ask to ask us to challenge against City, what will be an incredible City team again, undoubtedly. An Arsenal team who've improved. Chelsea have got a great manager, haven't they? They've got Poch now, haven't they? So there's every chance that he can whip them together quite quick. Do you know what I mean? So there's obviously a lot. And United have got a decent thing as well, fortunately. He seems to be galvanising them a little bit. I think we will come third next season, and I think we should be happy with that. I think we could win a trophy along the way, which obviously would be nice. It'd be nice to win the Europa League. I think it's in Dublin, isn't it? Yeah, the final. Should be boss.
That would be mad.
Yeah, that would be excellent fun, wouldn't it? So I think we'll come third. Yeah, I think we'll come third and win the Europa League. Fuck it. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, it's from Russ. Anyway, if you want to check out Russ, he's with Noel's band, and then maybe he'll get off his arse and actually do his own album at some point. Yeah. Hopefully, you don't need another pandemic to get that sorted out.
Well, I didn't finish it in the first one, so if we get another one, we'll see if it happens then. I'd love to. Hopefully, I will release some music sometime. I do love writing music, but it's just getting it together to be in one feasible idea, really. But like I said, I've never really aimed at it before the pandemic, so it's something that's definitely in my sights. Hopefully, it'll be out soon.
There you go, out soon. 2, 3, 4, 5 years, maybe 10. It'll be worth it, though, right? That's what you have to see.
We waited 30 years for the league, didn't we? You can wait a bit more for my solo record.
There you go. Well, I appreciate you coming on, mate. Like I say all the time, like and subscribe. I appreciate everyone that's listening, and we'll see you later.